Shadows set sail. The final voyage of the Mary Celeste begins the Atlantic Ocean in the late 19th century was a place of both promise and peril. For sailors, the sea was a livelihood, a battlefield, and sometimes a grave. Ships vanished without warning, swallowed by storms or claimed by hidden reefs. But among all the mysteries whispered in smoky taverns and bustling ports, none would become as enduring or as haunting as the story of the Mary Celeste. The ship's life began in 1861 in Nova Scotia under a different name, Amazon. From the very start, misfortune clung to her like a shadow. Her first captain died shortly after taking command. She suffered collisions, storms, and even a fire. Sailors, notoriously superstitious, muttered darkly about her. "This ship doesn't want to live," one old seaman was heard to say. In 1868, the vessel was sold to American owners and renamed Mary Celeste. But a new name could not erase the past. The ship continued to encounter mishaps, as if fate had marked her for something unusual. By the autumn of 1872, however, she was ready for a new voyage. The Mary Celeste lay anchored in New York Harbor, a hold filled with over 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol bound for Genoa. Her captain was Benjamin Briggs, a respected and deeply religious mariner known for his discipline and calm judgment. This voyage was different from most. Briggs brought his wife, Sarah, and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia, along for the journey. The crew consisted of 7 experienced sailors. There were no known conflicts, no questionable characters, no signs of trouble. The ship was sound, the cargo secure, and the weather promising. On November 5, 1872, the Mary Celeste set sail. The crew moved efficiently across the deck, adjusting lines and checking rigging. Captain Briggs stood at the helm, his wife nearby, and little Sophia watching the gulls wheel overhead. "Papa, how far are we going?" the child asked, her voice bright with curiosity. Briggs smiled gently. "Very far, my dear, but we'll be together. That's what matters." The ship slipped beyond the horizon, her white sails catching the wind. No one watching her depart could have imagined that this would be the last time anyone saw the people aboard alive. For several weeks, the voyage appeared uneventful. The captain's log recorded steady progress across the Atlantic. On November 25th, Briggs noted their position near the Azores. The weather was unsettled but not dangerous. The crew performed their duties. The ship held her course. Then the log fell silent. 9 days later, on December 4th, 1872, the British brig De Gratia spotted a vessel drifting aimlessly in the open sea. Her sails were partially set but slack, her movement unnatural. Captain David Morehouse raised his spyglass, studying the lonely silhouette. "That's the Mary Celeste," he murmured. His first mate frowned. "Briggs's ship? But they left before us. Why would she be adrift?" Morehouse lowered the glass, unease tightening his features. "I don't know, but something is wrong." The De Gratia approached cautiously. The Mary Celeste showed no signs of battle or storm damage, no smoke, no broken masts, no torn sails. Yet she moved like a ghost, untouched by human hands. Morehouse ordered a boarding party. What they found would ignite one of the greatest maritime mysteries of all time. The Mary Celeste was completely intact, her cargo untouched, her provisions plentiful, her personal belongings undisturbed. But her crew, every man, woman, and child, was gone, vanished. The mystery of the Mary Celeste had begun. aboard the ghost ship. The crew of the Dei Gratia boards the Mary Celeste. The waters near the Azores were strangely calm on December 4th, 1872. The Dei Gratia moved steadily across the gentle swells when a distant shape caught the attention of the helmsman. A ship, its sails partially set, its movement unnatural, drifted aimlessly across the open sea. Captain David Morehouse was summoned to the deck. He raised his spyglass, studying the lonely vessel. The name on the bow came into focus. Mary Celeste. A chill ran through him. "That's Briggs's ship," he murmured. His first mate, Oliver Deveau, frowned. "But they left New York 8 days before us. Why would they be drifting like that?" Morehouse lowered the glass slowly. "We're going to find out. Prepare a boarding party." The Dei Gratia approached cautiously. The Mary Celeste showed no signs of distress, no broken masts, no torn sails, no smoke. Yet something felt profoundly wrong. A ship at sea without a soul in sight was a sailor's nightmare.
Deveau and seaman John Wright climbed into a small boat and rowed toward the drifting brigantine. As they neared her hull, the silence grew oppressive. The Mary Celeste rocked gently, as if breathing in her sleep. Deveau grabbed the rope ladder and climbed aboard. The deck creaked under his boots. "Captain Briggs!" he called out. Only the wind answered. Wright joined him, and together they began to explore. The deck was tidy, too tidy. Lines were coiled neatly. The sails were partly set, as if someone had been adjusting them moments before abandoning the ship. Below deck, the eerie stillness deepened. In the captain's cabin, Sarah Briggs's belongings were neatly arranged. Her sewing machine sat on a table. A child's toys lay in a small box, untouched. The bed was made. Nothing was overturned. Nothing broken. Wright swallowed hard. "It's like they just walked away." Deveau nodded, his expression tight. "Or vanished." They moved to the crew's quarters. The sailors' chests were closed, their clothes folded. Pipes, boots, and personal items remained exactly where they should be. There was no sign of struggle, no blood, no damage. In the galley, food supplies were plentiful. Fresh water barrels were full. A meal had not been prepared recently, but nothing suggested haste or panic. The ship's logbook was found in the chart room. The last entry was dated November 25th, 9 days earlier. It described normal sailing conditions. Nothing hinted at danger. But something was missing. The lifeboat. The ropes that had secured it were cut cleanly, not frayed, not snapped. Cut. Deveau and Wright exchanged a troubled glance. "Why would they abandon a perfectly seaworthy ship?" Wright whispered. Deveau shook his head. Unless they believed it wasn't seaworthy. They descended into the hold. The cargo, over 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol, was intact, though later inspection would reveal that 9 barrels were leaking. The smell of alcohol hung faintly in the air. The bilge contained some water, but not enough to threaten the ship. The pumps were functional. The hull was sound. Nothing justified abandoning the vessel. When the two men returned to the deck, the silence felt heavier than before. The Mary Celeste seemed to watch them, as if waiting for them to understand something they could not yet see. Back aboard the Dei Gratia, Captain Morehouse listened grimly to their report. "The ship is intact, the cargo untouched, and the crew is gone." "Yes, sir," Deveau replied. "It's as if they simply disappeared." The crew of the Dei Gratia exchanged uneasy glances. Sailors were not strangers to death, but this was different. This was a void, a question mark carved into the sea. Some whispered, "Ghost ship. Bad omen. The sea took them." But Morehouse was a practical man. "We'll bring her in," he said firmly. "The Mary Celeste must be delivered to port. Whatever happened, we'll let the authorities decide." A small crew was assigned to sail the abandoned vessel. As they boarded her, each man felt a prickle of unease. The ship was too quiet, too still. Every creak of the timbers sounded like a whisper. The two ships set course for Gibraltar, but the men aboard the Mary Celeste would later swear that during those long nights at sea, they heard footsteps on the deck above them, and voices where no living soul should have been. The mystery had only just begun. The investigation and the shadow of suspicion. The Mary Celeste arrives in Gibraltar, and the mystery deepens. When the Mary Celeste and the Dei Gratia finally reached Gibraltar, the sight of the drifting brigantine, intact, silent, and utterly deserted, sent ripples of unease through the harbour. Dock workers paused mid-task, staring at the ghostly vessel, as if expecting its missing crew to suddenly appear on deck. Word spread quickly. By the time the ships were secured, a crowd had gathered along the quay, whispering in hushed tones. A ship with no crew. Bad luck follows her, I tell you. What happened out there? The British authorities wasted no time. Maritime law required a formal inquiry, especially since the Dei Gratia's crew stood to receive a substantial salvage reward. The man appointed to lead the investigation was Frederick Solly Flood, the Attorney General of Gibraltar, a stern, suspicious figure known for seeing conspiracies where others saw coincidence. He was, in short, the worst possible man to investigate a mystery. The interrogation begins. Captain David Morehouse and his first mate, Oliver Devoe, were summoned to Solly Flood's office. The room smelled of ink and damp paper, and the Attorney General regarded them with cold, calculating eyes. Captain Morehouse, he began, steepling his fingers, you claim to have found the Mary Celeste abandoned at sea.
Yes, sir, Morehouse replied evenly. And the crew, every last one of them, simply vanished? That is correct. Solly Flood leaned forward. Don't you find that convenient? Morehouse stiffened. Sir, we had nothing to do with whatever befell that ship. Benjamin Briggs was a friend. But Solly Flood was unconvinced. In his mind, the pieces were already forming a dark picture. Murder, theft, a staged abandonment. The Dei Gratia crew, he believed, had attacked the Mary Celeste, killed everyone aboard, and then concocted a story to claim the salvage reward. It was a sensational theory, but it had one fatal flaw. There was no evidence. Examining, the ship inspectors combed through the Mary Celeste from bow to stern. What they found only deepened the mystery. No signs of violence, no blood, no broken furniture, no damage to the ship's interior. Personal belongings untouched. Captain Briggs's clothes, Sarah's sewing machine, little Sophia's toys, all neatly arranged. Cargo intact. Over 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol were accounted for, except for 9 that had leaked. Food and water plentiful, enough provisions for 6 months. The ship seaworthy. Some water in the bilge, but nothing alarming. The pumps worked, the hull was sound. The lifeboat missing. Its ropes had been cleanly cut, not torn. Navigation instruments gone. The sextant and chronometer were missing, likely taken by whoever left the ship. The facts painted a baffling picture. The Mary Celeste had been abandoned deliberately, but for no obvious reason. Solly Flood's obsession. Despite the lack of evidence, Solly Flood pressed on. He interrogated the Dei Gratia crew repeatedly, searching for inconsistencies. He examined the cargo, the rigging, the logbook, anything that might support his theory. But the more he looked, the less sense his suspicions made. Still, he persisted. Perhaps, he suggested one day, Captain Briggs went mad, or perhaps the crew mutinied. But Briggs was known for his calm temperament and strong moral character. The crew were experienced, reliable men. There was no hint of conflict. Or pirates, Solly Flood muttered. But pirates would have stolen the cargo and the valuables. Nothing fit. The press takes over. While Solly Flood chased shadows, the newspapers seized the story with glee. Headlines screamed across Europe and America. Ghost ship arrives in Gibraltar. The Mary Celeste mystery deepens. Murder? Mutiny? Or something supernatural? The public was enthralled. The idea of a perfectly intact ship drifting without a crew was irresistible.
Taverns buzzed with speculation. Sailors swapped theories late into the night. Some whispered of sea monsters, others of vengeful spirits. A few claimed the ship was cursed from the day she was launched. The Mary Celeste had become more than a ship. She was a legend in the making. The verdict. After weeks of investigation, Solly Flood was forced to concede defeat. He had no proof of wrongdoing, no motive, no bodies, no crime. Reluctantly, he approved a salvage award for the De Gratia crew, though far smaller than they deserved, as he still harbored private suspicions. The Mary Celeste was released and eventually returned to service, but she carried with her an invisible weight, the unanswered question of what happened to her crew, a question that would echo across oceans and centuries. The legacy of a legend. Theories, explanations, and the enduring mystery of the Mary Celeste. The official investigation in Gibraltar ended without answers, but the story of the Mary Celeste was only just beginning. The ship returned to service, yet she carried with her an invisible weight, an aura of dread that clung to her timbers like sea mist. Sailors whispered about strange noises in the night, footsteps on empty decks, and the unsettling feeling of being watched. The Mary Celeste had become a ghost long before she met her final fate. But the world was not ready to let her go. The mystery demanded explanation, and so began more than a century of speculation. 1. Theory: mutiny or murder. This was the first theory proposed by the authorities, but it collapsed under scrutiny. There were no signs of violence, no blood, no broken furniture, no missing valuables. Captain Briggs was respected, calm, and deeply religious. His crew were experienced and had no known conflicts. Nothing suggested mutiny. The theory faded quickly. 2. Theory: alcohol fumes and fear of explosion. This remains one of the most plausible explanations. 9 barrels of industrial alcohol were later found to be leaking. Alcohol fumes could have accumulated in the hold. A single spark, perhaps from a lantern, might have caused a small explosion or a frightening whoosh of ignited vapor. A frightened crew might have rushed into the lifeboat, intending only to wait until the danger passed. One can imagine the scene. "Captain, the smell! It's getting stronger!" Briggs frowns, sniffing the air. "Lower the boat. We'll ride it out until the fumes clear." But if the rope connecting the lifeboat to the ship snapped, the Mary Celeste would sail on without them. This theory explains much, but not everything. 3. Theory: misjudged danger and a fatal decision. Some experts believe Briggs misread the situation. The ship had taken on some water. The pumps were not functioning perfectly. The weather was unstable. If Briggs believed the Mary Celeste was sinking, he might have ordered everyone into the lifeboat. But the ship was not sinking. If the lifeboat drifted away or capsized, the crew would have been lost to the sea. This theory is widely accepted among maritime historians. 4. Theory: sea monsters, krakens, and the supernatural. The late 19th century was a golden age of maritime superstition. Sailors spoke of giant squids, ghostly apparitions, and cursed ships. The Mary Celeste, with her troubled past and eerie discovery, fit perfectly into these tales. Some claimed a sea monster dragged the crew overboard. Others whispered that the ship was cursed from the day she was launched. A few insisted the crew had been abducted by something not of this world. These theories say more about human imagination than historical fact, but they help cement the Mary Celeste as a legend. 5. Theory: the Bermuda Triangle connection. Though the Mary Celeste was nowhere near the Bermuda Triangle, later writers linked the two simply because both involved mysterious disappearances. The association stuck, feeding the mythos even further. The final fate of the Mary Celeste. After the Gibraltar investigation, the Mary Celeste continued to sail, but her reputation made it increasingly difficult to find crew. Sailors avoided her. Captains refused her. She was considered unlucky, even cursed. In 1885, her final captain deliberately ran her aground near Haiti in an insurance fraud scheme. The ship broke apart on the reef, ending her troubled life. But her story did not sink with her. The legend lives on. The Mary Celeste became more than a ship. She became a symbol of the unknown, of the sea's vast, unfathomable depths, of the mysteries that defy explanation. Books, films, documentaries, and countless retellings have kept her memory alive. Each generation adds new theories, new interpretations, new layers to the legend. What happened to Captain Briggs, his family, and his crew? We may never know. Perhaps they fled a danger that never truly existed. Perhaps they misjudged the sea. Perhaps fate simply claimed them, as it has claimed so many others. But the Mary Celeste endures because she reminds us of something essential, that even in an age of science and certainty, the world still holds secrets, that the ocean keeps its own counsel, and that some mysteries are destined to remain unsolved. The Mary Celeste sails on, not across the waves, but through time, forever drifting in the imagination of all who hear her story.